unpacking today's headlines. This is Souls and Liberty in Depth.
Hello everyone and welcome to In Depth, the production of Souls and Liberty. To learn more about Souls and Liberty, we invite you to visit the website soulsandliberty.com. I'm your host, Gary Michael Voris. In Depth is where we bring you thoughtful discussion to help you connect the dots behind today's news. The big picture. Events in D.C. and around the country, around the world actually, are happening fast and furious, including the resignation at last of Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle after her grilling yesterday on Capitol Hill. Joining us today to talk more about that, but much more importantly, the larger picture of what's going on, our fellow Souls and Liberty contributors, Stephen Wynn. Hi, Stephen. How you doing?
Doing well. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to join you. Thanks
very much. And Arthur Clareau. Hello, Art. What's going on?
Hey, Gary, how you doing? It's great to be here.
Doing well. Gentlemen, I'm going to propose something and then get your thoughts. In less than 2 weeks, one way or another, Kamala Harris is going to be president of the United States. At this point, how it comes about no longer matters. Either Biden dies sometime soon or he resigns the presidency itself, not just his campaign. But by hook or by crook, Harris gets to the Oval Office without a single vote ever being cast for her. The takeover is almost complete. I'm going to call this Plan B of the communists, since Trump was supposed to be dead. You got to remember that. He was supposed to be dead. And all because he's not, they had to move really fast because they knew Joe only had a very little time left. So the debate was set up back when to begin raising questions and eventually remove him. They thought they had time to arrive at their choice, but again, because Trump was supposed to be dead and is not, they've gone into like flurry mode. He survived, they've scrambled, and now here we are. It's Harris, probably reluctantly from their point of view, so now they have to put the cheat on again in November. But no fear, they have millions of illegals in place with enough of them ready to vote. This is how it's going down. Not exactly according to their original plan, but Plan B is now launched. Remember, you cannot forget any of this. Trump was supposed to be dead. So I want to get your reactions to that hypothesis. Let's start with you, Arthur. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a really great point. And it brings to mind a verse where in the Bible about how when they reject the love of the truth, God sends them a strong delusion. And it really does seem that way in the Democrat Party right now. There's a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion. And what's even more interesting is that this is the party that prides itself on its erudition. It's we're the smart ones, we're the educated ones, we're the Democrats, we love democracy and we're here to save democracy. And yet here they are doing what they're doing.
Yeah, here they are doing it. Stephen, what are your thoughts on that hypothesis? A little jumping off point for today.
Yeah, I think it's spot on, really. I think this is really kind of a genius approach for them to install Kamala at the White House, basically giving her time to look presidential, to sound presidential, to give her time really to start wooing back perhaps some of the minority vote. She's not exactly famous for her eloquence. However, I don't care what she says, it's going to beat what Biden said in the June 27th debate and moving forward.
When we talk about what's going to happen in November, now look, this is presuming that there's going to be a November election. I mean, sure, there's nothing to indicate in a hard fact fashion right now that there won't be. But when you see what's unfolding, when you see what's unfolding in D.C. right now, in the White House, I mean, think of this, no one in the American public has laid eyes on the leader for days now. He's issuing, or I should say, orders are coming out of the White House on the whitehouse.gov page that he's, giving away some of his authority to this guy and that guy to do this and to do that. Yes, he's supposed to make some live address from the Oval Office on Wednesday. This is completely crazy. And they've done nothing. I mean, including to fold in, our headline there about Cheadle resigning earlier. I mean, her testimony yesterday in front of that congressional hearing was a complete fecal storm. You learned nothing about anything about the assassination attempt. Nothing. So you couldn't give answers to this, you couldn't give answers to that. You're trying to find out what's going on in the White House right now, what's going on at Biden's place in Delaware. No answers. You don't know what's going on. Nobody knows what's going on in the American public. But somebody, or a very small number of people, know exactly what's going on. And they, of course, aren't being very honest. So, you look down the road and you say, do we even know there's going to be an election? Again, remember, Trump was supposed to be dead. You cannot ignore that fact just because he's barnstorming around and, sort of back to his full form. Doesn't change anything. He's supposed to be dead, and they are now dealing with the reality that he's not. There's still a sentencing coming up, but would Judge Merchan have enough, to actually put him behind bars at this point, given everything that's going on? Guys, either one of you can take this. Stephen, we'll start with you. Do you think that there is, I don't necessarily want to call it a coup, but some coup-esque type thing going on right now? Or is this just, it's a little crazy, but, things are normal?
Yeah, definitely not normal. I think it's very possible, what the scenario that you described. It's really, this is an unprecedented moment in American political history. There's nothing like this has ever happened before. It's been nonstop, really, since the debate. Just one sort of an unbroken chain, basically, of chaos coming from the left, the Democratic side, and nothing that, really, it kind of has the fingerprints of the deep state all over it. If I can venture that far to say that, it's nothing that is coming out of the government is inspiring confidence, at least in me. We just had Alejandro Mayorkas say, he's pledging to undertake a quote unquote independent investigation of the assassination attempt. Who does he pick? Not Josh Hawley, Senator Josh Hawley, who would be at the top of my list. He picks Janet Napolitano, Obama White House insider, and Frances Townsend, too, ally, and she's a member of the boards of directors for the Trilateral Commission, for the Council on Foreign Relations. So it doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence. And I don't know. It's the chaos, I think, is so profound. News is literally dropping, major news by the day, by the hour today, and it's either gross incompetence on their part, or it's a genius level maneuver, the likes of which would make Stalin proud, basically.
Oh yeah, Stalin's probably saying, "Why didn't I think of that?" Arthur, what do you bring in here? What do you think of all this?
Well, there's a line in an old movie about ghost stories, and I think it applies here, but with conspiracies. A lot of people like to kind of dismiss the idea that conspiracies exist around us. And it's like, well, you might not want to believe in conspiracy theories, but you're living in one right now. The way that this is going down, whether you want to look at Trump and the assassination attempt on him, or the way that they're moving Biden out, or how Biden got in the first place, none of this is normal. None of this is organic. This should be concerning to anyone watching.
Yeah, when you look back over the kind of the history. Let's go back to 2020. You can go back to even before that. So COVID happens, and then the election is kind of determined by this sort of first in the American history political level of zillions of mail-in ballots coming in, and then the election day turns to election week, turns to election month, turns to election season. Now you get early voting 3 months beforehand, but in Pennsylvania, they count your votes, 3, 4, 5 days after the election. Somehow in the midst of all of that, Biden gets declared the winner, and the vote totals change at, 3 in the morning. Then, he's in and all the crazy stuff is happening. And, Trump he's present, but he's not really a giant force yet until 2022. The midterms happen. The red wave doesn't happen, more like a little red puddle. And then all of a sudden, here comes Trump, and then here comes the lawfare. Then comes the attempt to take him off the ballot in 16 states that the Supreme Court shot down unanimously. Then it's try to bankrupt him, and then he turns around and sells the stuff, and Elon comes in. I mean, this is $45 million a month. Then they try to kill him. Then there's the whole question of is this covered up? How did a 20-year-old kid get on top of a roof with cops supposedly underneath him in the same building? How did he get a clean shot like that? How did he get off 5, 6, 7 shots, whatever it was, before they finally, shot and killed him? Then all of a sudden Joe is out of the race. It's boom, 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 boom. And it just seems to be there's just too many coincidences here, too many things. And once again, they all line up in favor of the Democrats. Always. Stephen.
Yeah, and not just the Democrats, but a specific candidate, basically. I mean, let's remember that the powers that be inside the Democratic establishment, even going back before Trump, Trump was elected in 2016, the Hillary faction crushed Bernie Sanders because he was presenting a threat to them. They did the same thing again in 2020, crushed him, basically allowing Biden to maneuver in. I don't know, perhaps he was a little too open about his socialist leanings. Maybe they wanted that kept under wraps for longer. I don't know, but it is an open conspiracy, I would say. To what degree, we'll see pretty soon, I think. But the Democrats will do anything to try to preserve their power, and no one, not Trump, not Biden, not Bernie Sanders, they won't let anyone get in their way.
Yeah, I agree, Arthur. Let's go to you for a second here, just so folks know you are up in Canada. Stephen's in Kansas City. We're down here in Houston. We had on a show, earlier, Trey Traynor on the Federal Election Commission, and who's in Austin, Texas, and Jim Ellis, who is in Washington, D.C. We have a nice group of contributors here. But Arthur, you're up in Canada. You're not an American citizen, but you are closely aligned with what we would consider sort of the political right here in America. What is kind of the temperature of like-minded Canadians with regard to what's going on here? So we're just looking there going, man, those Americans are crazy.
Depends who you're talking to. It really depends who you're talking to. Like in the United States, there's a massive number of Canadians who feel the same way as the average Republican voter, MAGA voter. Their concerns and complaints are about the same as you guys have down there. And the difference here is that our cities seem to have a lot more control over our federal and provincial governments and the division of powers is a little less distinct than it is there. So we don't have a Florida or a Texas to go to. We're all in California, whether we like it or not.
Cool. That's horrifying.
So yeah, it's a concern, but there's a rising popularity among especially young people opposing this, because what's happened now is that the same sort of housing crisis that Americans are starting to feel is like threefold here, and just everyone has been priced out of pretty much just basic living. So amongst the average Canadian who I would never have heard talking about politics a year or two ago, every single one of them wants Trudeau gone. Every single one of them is concerned about the transmania, the cost of living crisis. In fact, immigration is becoming a huge thing here too. There's a lot of illegals and a lot of just the leftist government here just threw open the doors to the world as well without any sort of regard for, simple things like where they're going to put them, but also complex things like security and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's quite a thing going on up here.
You look at what's going on. Let's remember that the communist or communism invaded successfully and has taken over the Democratic Party, has taken over one of America's major political parties. And through a whole combination of things, a cultural revolution that happened in the 60s, brought about by various people in the media and on college campuses and sort of in the think tanks and in the cultural institutions. And you get the sense now as we are rolling along here that events are starting to unfold at a much faster rate. I don't mean just, all of a sudden there's news every hour or something. You see the unfolding of this happening much quicker. So much so that, folks who are my age, I'll be 63 in a month, everybody talking who's sort of over 45-ish or so, 40 or over, is like, wow, what's going on? Like the whole country's changing. I don't know that it's fair to label it a conspiracy theory. I think the theory part comes in at where exactly is, who's the one pulling the strings? Is it, Soros? Is it Klaus Schwab? Is Obama a puppet, or is he the puppet master? All of those things are the theories, but that there is a conspiracy to overthrow America as we have understood America and as patriots have understood America all these many, many decades and years and a couple centuries now. I don't think that's a conspiracy. I think that's actually true. The theory part comes in and, exactly how is it working? Stephen, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. Really, for all intents and purposes, America has been governed. We've been a one-party state really since 2008, except for the 4-year Trump term, and we can see the effects of that. Just absolute corruption of our government, decline in standards of living, just a general malaise and rot setting into the country. And it was more subtle under Obama. I think things really sort of hit a flashpoint in 2020, and it's just been under Biden. It's just been steamrolling ahead, growing exponentially. And I think obviously tens and tens of millions of Americans are waking up, thankfully. But the question is, will it be too late?
Yeah, that's the question. Is it, to race against time? All right, I'm going to throw you guys a change up here. The American experiment is much closer to its end than the vast majority of patriots actually realize. The communists, on the other hand, having quickly again gotten up off the mat fast, because they always do, they sense that their victory is very close at hand. They lie, they stonewall, they cheat, they steal elections, they get away with it every single time. And despite a failed assassination attempt, which they'll also get away with, they're going to press forward. Americans may soon be faced with a decision to make regarding a civil war. And no one has any idea what that would even begin to look like. Let's go to you, Arthur. We did a few stories in the past that very close to a near majority, 42% in one poll and 40% in another poll, both said that they believe, Americans believe that the U.S. will be at a civil war in 5 to 10 years, and those polls are now 2 years old. What do you think about all this? Is America going to have a civil war? Is it going to, how would it even work? Who would you shoot at? All this sort of stuff. It's not as clear cut as, the middle of the 19th century.
Well, I'm going to take a step back for 1 second on that, because this is something that's happening across the West, this heated division between really worldviews. And it's very difficult to overcome someone's entire worldview. With that said, I think one of the big questions for me when the Democrats do this sort of thing, or leftists in any Western country really do these sorts of things, these cheating and all this sort of stuff, is where is their opposition? Where are the Republicans in all this? And they're there, they see it, and they're sitting around. They sometimes do a little bit here or there, or they do something symbolic, but really they're not holding the Democrats to task the way that Democrats hold Republicans to task. And I know that many people are of the impression that they're just kind of a controlled opposition at this point because they don't really do a whole lot. And I think that's the big thing that needs to be looked at, rather than gearing up for a civil war that we hope never happens. I think that the average person watching this or around the country or across the West needs to start really deeply getting involved in their local GOP, in their local government, in their state, in their every possible chance they can get, because you'd be surprised how much of an effect you can have. And I think you'd be surprised in certain places as well how few people there are making these choices or making these decisions, and how easy it is to change things.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. The polite Canadian. Canada known for its politeness, stepping back from civil war. Probably not a bad thing. Stephen, what do you think? You and I have had a few offline conversations about all of this, and it's very, we sort of can't believe we've come to this precipice here in the, United States of America. Right.
Yeah, a big sentiment going around social media today is buckle up for something is coming. Other people are saying lock and load. So hopefully it doesn't come to that. In a way, America has really been suffering through an unbloody civil war for the past several years.
Fair point.
The worldview clash, as Arthur talked about, has become so pronounced. The country is so divided that it just seems there's no way to reconcile. Despite talk about moderation and how we need to come together, et cetera, the visions for the United States are completely opposite. They're completely polarized. I'll read the New York Times, and just the other side is thinking. Scrolling through the comments section, it's just unbelievable to me. I think these people are on planet Mars. It's just they view the world completely differently than I do. They think Biden has done a wonderful job. No mention of the inflation, the erosion of the middle class, et cetera. It's just high praise and a burning desire to push the leftist agenda ever forward. And so, I don't know how that can be reconciled with the GOP, the MAGA vision for the country. It's concerning. It really is. It's things are very, very different than they were during the Civil War period in the 19th century. Much more complicated, but it's concerning for the future of the country.
Yeah, it certainly is. So here's a point to consider. Let's make this our last one. We always make our last discussion one on the spiritual level. We do souls and liberty. So in 1917, the Queen of Heaven appeared to 3 children in Fatima, warning about future events. Her major warning specifically was that Russia, at the time, this was 2 weeks before the Bolshevik Revolution began, 2 weeks before, that Russia would spread her errors throughout the world, where her errors, obviously, communism, Marxism, communism, and completely avoiding all the silly nuanced talk about, Marxism is different economic view than communism and socialism. Nobody cares about that. The point is they hate God, they hate freedom, they hate individual liberty. They don't believe human beings have, rights and not made in the image and likeness of God. That's the problem, not whether they, a small group controls this economic thing or whatever. Nobody cares about that. We're talking about people living and dying here. So for the first time in 2,000 years of Christianity, the first time in 2,000 years, Queen of Heaven comes to earth and warns about a particular form of government, and that form of government is ascendant here in the United States and could very well right now, behind the scenes, be staging a coup in order to gain full control of everything going on here. Stephen, I'll come back to you first, then wrap up with Art. What do you think of that?
I think it's spot on. The deep state at its foundation is very much a spiritual order, not just temporal. And I think that you just see the fingerprints of the diabolical all over everything that it does. and it's very unsettling to realize, the state that the country is in, the fact that Our Lady warned about it, and I was in my late teens in the 1990s. We thought, oh, the Berlin Wall fell, November 1989, the Soviet Union dissolved, America was the new hyperpower, unchallenged, and it was boom times for the country, and we could never have imagined what was going on behind the scenes in the universities and in the politicals, et cetera. Communism was absolutely not dead. It was quietly encroaching upon the country in ways that we had never envisioned. And it has been steadily doing so until really just a few years ago when it erupted. I would argue in 2020. That's when my mind was blown with the George Floyd riots and all of that kind of thing happening. It just seems like the masks were taken off, and we have a very formidable foe here. Trump is strong, absolutely, no question about it, but the diabolical is very strong as well. And I would say that we as Catholics, we as Christians, have to redouble our efforts at prayer, at educating our fellow citizens that this is a spiritual battle, not just a political one, because without God's assistance, things could end up very, very badly for this country.
Absolutely. Arthur, I'll toss over to you with just the caveat that 70 years after the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, the vast majority of Russians had lost their faith. It's mostly Orthodox, but nonetheless, they're still baptized Christians. They had lost the faith because that's what the goal of communism is. It's to crush belief in God. They don't call it atheistic communism for nothing. What are your thoughts on all this?
What's fascinating about that is that we're about 70 years out from the kind of takeover and real surge of that same system in the West. And really, we went through the exact same thing. We've had a decline in faith, a decline in church attendance, all of that, obviously through propaganda and instruction of children and that sort of thing. But the interesting thing is that after the fall of communism in Eastern Europe and in Russia, the surge back to faith was immense. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that surge now as well. After 2020, as Stephen was saying, there was this awakening of what was going on. And it's been going on for a long time. There's been this development of this new order for a while. And I think that mask off moment really woke a lot of people up and sent them right back to church. And they're there today. And hopefully that continues to increase. And I think a really important point is that the church be aware of that and start leaning in that direction and bringing those people in and helping to shepherd them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as you look at this, if you think of the communists as a killer, who has somehow sweet-talked his way into your house, and he's proposing all kinds of things, and he's softening up. So at some point, just before he kills you, you have to become aware of the fact that he's got his hands out to strangle you, or he's just pulled out the knife, or he has the gun. Some point, the mask has to come down, and you have to, he can't kill you, come upon you and kill you without you beginning to realize it, even if it's the last moment of your life. And it really seems like right now that's kind of where we are with all of this. The mask is off, and now the lunge has begun, whether it's a gun, strangling, knife, whatever analogy you want to use. How could anybody who's a reasonable person look at events that are going on and not say, there is something sinister here going on? For the moment, gentlemen, we're going to leave that here. We're going to have you both back on, of course, later this week. To Souls and Liberty fellow contributors, thank you both. That wraps us up for today. Everybody, thank you for watching. Souls and Liberty will be bringing you in depth each day with intelligent discussion to help you connect the dots and provide a temporal, of course, as well as a spiritual framework from which to understand all of this and to help you process it all. If you like In-Depth, you like our show here, please consider a donation to Souls and Liberty, just clicking on the provided link so we can keep bringing you thought-provoking programming every day. So, until tomorrow then, God love you. I'm Gary Michael Voris.